Hi, it's Emily. I'm here to talk to you about my February Kid Lit book haul. And I have two book haul videos for February. This is my regular book haul from my regular children's literature books. I also have a vintage book haul, vintage and antiquarian book haul, which I'll do separately. So first of all, I love Betsy Tacy, the Betsy Tacy series by Maud Hart Lovelace. So this is Betsy and the Great Big World. This is actually the fattest book of all of the Betsy books. Most of them are smaller, and I do several reviews on my channel. You can see that, and in a lot of my other monthly book reads, I talk about the Betsy Tacy series. But if you like Anne of Green Gables and you like Maud Hart Lovelace or Ellen Montgomery, who did Anne of Green Gables, you would absolutely love this. This was the last book, I believe. Well, there's Betsy's Wedding. I'm not sure which was the last book, but there are about 8 or 9 books, and it starts with Betsy and then Betsy Tacy and Tib as 3 little friends in the early 1900s, all the way up until the time of the first car is released. They get to ride in their first automobile, all the way until the 20s and 30s when they become adults. So it's a very wonderful series, highly recommended. And I also purchased a used copy of Robinson Crusoe by Daniel Defoe, and I haven't read it. I really don't like children's adventure stories that much because I feel like they're more aimed for boys. And of course, I like the more girly stories. I am doing an adventure unit on a class I'm developing in children's literature, so I'll be reading Robinson Crusoe. And if you're familiar with the American Girl series, I did pick up 2 vintage American Girls, Meet Samantha and Meet Felicity. And these ones are actually from these particular copies. This one was from 1946, and this other one was, I think, from 1951. So these are vintage copies. But the American Girl series are, I don't like a lot of the American Girl books because they've become too modernized and too sort of aimed at selling the newer toys and dolls. But the original stories where they introduce you to the girls, there's the Pioneer Girl, the African American Girl, the Indian Girl, the Pirate Girl, and they really are nice. They have some nice illustrations and text, and it gives a real nice portrait of the lives of these girls during the time frame. And they're really easy to read. You can read it in 30 minutes, 20 minutes even, maybe an hour, depending on how fast you read. But I really enjoy the American Girl series, the original. And here, speaking of Betsy Tacy, is the very first book, Betsy Tacy. Most of the Betsy Tacy books I have are in this format. I couldn't find the first book, so I got it in this larger format from a used bookstore. And this is the very first book, Betsy Tacy, and then where it's just Betsy and her first friend, and then Betsy and Tacy, and then in the second book it's Betsy, Tacy, and Tib, and then their adventures for the rest of the book. But I absolutely love the Betsy Tacy books. I love the illustrations in them and the art. They're very well written. They're very pretty. They're very historically accurate for the time frame, and all the Betsy Tacy books are based on Maud Hart Lovelace's childhood growing up, and she sees herself as Betsy. Even in the book, Betsy is writing stories when she's a little girl. And here's a map of where they lived, and in the back there's always a nonfiction section that shows buildings and people that are referred to that were in the book, that were real. So I love this one. I really recommend finding a copy of Betsy Tacy. See how you like the series, and it's just a wonderful read. Bette Midler endorses a lot of the books. I absolutely love Betsy Tacy. I can't tell you how much I love it. I picked up this book actually on my travels. It's called North Child by Edith Putin, I don't know. But it's actually very soft. It's like soft and squishy and kind of compact. It's really neat, and it's about a timeless tale about a girl, it's a fantasy story about a girl, and time travel on her polar bear. It does not have any illustrations whatsoever. It's a full, normal sort of older child, adolescent fantasy story, and it is a UK book. So this was actually purchased at an international bookstore. So you could probably find it on eBay, and it looks really good. I'm excited to read that. So I also picked up, and this is funny because I don't have any of Beverly Cleary's books, and as a children's literature student who designs classes for college literary students, in children's literature, and also is doing a master's project in children's literature. I've never read Beverly Cleary, and the one I picked up because it was so funny. It's called Emily's Runaway Imagination, and my name's Emily. And she's, of course, the author of Ramona the Pest, the series. And what really got me here is it says, can imaginative Emily make her biggest dream come true? And Emily grows up in an old farmhouse in Pittsburgh, Oregon, and I live in Oregon, so I can't wait to read this. This is not one of her more common titles, so it'll be interesting to see what it's about, and I just thought it was meant to be for me to read because it was calling out to me sort of some of the irony there. I finally picked up a copy of The Doll People. And it's just such a lovely illustrated book about characters in a dollhouse, or figures that come to life, and about being trapped in the dollhouse. And I like the way the book is laid out. Of course, it's a bigger, fat novel, but it has full pages of text. It kind of reminds me of the layout and formatting of the Harry Potter books a little bit. And it's a big, chunky book, and it has a really nice texture on the cover. Here's the spine. And I love dolls. I collect vintage dolls also, so I'm really excited about reading this. I saw this on a review somewhere. So that'll be fun. And, of course, I love fairies, and I love anything pink. So I picked up this. It's called The Fairy Doll. Other Tales from the Doll's House by Rumer Godin, with a foreword by Jacqueline Wilson. 7 different books in one. Here's the back of it. And here's the spine. It's a whole book of basically sort of dolls and fairies and their stories, and it's a full novel style. I mean, it's fat reading actually, so not for a young child. And I really just love the front of it, the fairy doll. So I have no idea what it's about. I just saw that on my travels as well, so I'm excited for that. And I'm almost done, but I had to cover it. It was a February book haul book, but I also started reading it right away for my master's thesis. It's The Hatchet by Gary Paulson. I'm sure you've heard of this. It's commonly taught and read in middle schools. And it's a 3-time Newbery Honor Award author. It has, of course, the Silver Newbery Honor Award here. And I'm almost done. You can see my bookmark. And I'll cover this in my February book reads in a couple of days, so I won't talk about that now. I'm tempted, but I'll have to finish it first, and then I'll do a full review actually on it here shortly. I'm almost done. I actually love Eloise, and in my January book reviews, I covered Eloise in Moscow, which is a book republished after being out of print for 30 years by Kay Thompson. So I purchased also Eloise at Christmas time, and I love Hilary Knight's art. She is the illustrator that does these books. The covers on these books are always gorgeous, and I generally occasionally will get a picture book if it's sort of a collectible, and it has an outstanding illustrator that is well known and has many awards. And the Eloise books are just so quirky and fun, and the art is just amazing just to look at and to sort of put it together with the words. So. And I actually also purchased this special one, Kay Thompson's original Eloise book, but released as the 60th anniversary edition, brand new, the absolutely essential 60th anniversary edition Eloise, drawings by Hilary Knight. It's a very fat one, actually. It's much bigger than her other books. What I love about this is it has in the 1/4 of the entire book is all about the making of the Eloise books. There are copies of some of the original artwork when they were pondering what Eloise should look like. It talks about the phenomenon and the craze culturally of Eloise. It talks about the author, the illustrator. So there's a whole section of that, and then of course this is the original Eloise book itself, and it has actually additional illustrations and drawings that are not in the regular. And so this is a collectible. It was originally written in 1955. This is the 2015 edition. So this is a very nice book with the Christmas one for my collection. And I'm getting to the end here. I did purchase, this is a reference book on children's literature, on Victorian children's literature. It's called Little Wide Awake. And it's an anthology of Victorian children's books and periodicals. And I found this on eBay, mostly in the UK. It exists. It's a UK book, but I actually found a couple copies on Amazon. So, which is where I purchased it. It's absolutely amazing. It is just full of just what some of the Victorian children's books looked like at the time, different pages, excerpts, absolutely brilliant and talented color and black and white plates and illustrations, and actually it's more of a fiction book because it has the actual stories and periodicals in them. There's a small section that's nonfiction where they talk about the era, so this is very useful for my project, and I love the way it looks. It's a big, hardy, big book. Here's the back of it. But I really recommend this if you like vintage or Victorian literature, but you can't buy a bunch of children's literature books from that era. I would buy Little Wide Awake because it's a nice sampling of children's literature from that time. And I did a review for Philomena for January by Kate Sarity, which is one of my absolute favorite books, an orphan tale. She reminds me very much of Anne from Anne of Green Gables. But Kate Sarity is a Hungarian author, and she also wrote these other two books, which I purchased because I like Philomena so much, The White Stag and The Chestry Oak. And I have not, of course, read them. I just got them. The White Stag is sort of a historical mythology kind of a book, you know, where they take real people from, like, Attila. Yeah, this one was all about the Attila the Hun, and put it into a fictional sort of a tale. So it's received an award, so it should be brilliant. The Chestry Oak is more about a boy who escapes Nazi Germany and befriends a horse, and I have no idea what happens after that, but she is an absolutely stunning and beautiful and brilliant writer, and she writes the most elaborately exquisite details about the Hungarian countryside and landscape. And you see a lot of emotion come out in her writing, which I really like a great deal. And I also purchased the Christmas Annual for Boys and Girls from 1974 because that's the year I was born. I thought that was exciting. And it was in absolutely perfect condition. And it has things like songs and Christmas stories, poems, really nice pictures, some games, completely uncompleted puzzles, crosswords. Really a neat thing. Of course, I was, would have loved this when I was young too, but now it's just a collectible, and it actually has the original price tag on it, $1.50. So that was kind of fun for my Christmas collection. And this is my very last book to show you, and probably silly, but I had to get it because it was only $1 at the vintage bookstore. It is Madelines Christmas. It's a Madeline book, Madeline by Ludwig Melons? I can never pronounce his name. My son had all the Madeline books when he was little. He's 18 now, my younger son. So I don't remember, but I used to read them to him, and I know it's like Eloise. It's very well known for its artistic style. And when I do purchase children's books so I can reference them in my children's literature project, I purchase the ones that are well known for their artwork. So I like to study the art and how the writer uses the art to accentuate and sort of bring out the story. And it's really nice to study art, because I'm an art fan and a literature fan. So there you have my February book haul of more normal, non-antiquarian, non-vintage books, and I will also do my book haul from my antiquarian books, and you will not want to miss that. Trust me. Thanks for watching.